I hope you're all having a safe and safe year, I should say. But hope you're all staying safe and healthy out there. And don't forget to stay 6 feet away. This is just a friendly reminder to everybody to stay safe, healthy, and of course 6 feet away. So today, I thought it would be very interesting for me to talk about something that I actually enjoy doing on my free time, which is video games. Actually, video games, and also my personal experiences with the consoles and the different types of things that these games are played on. So I'm actually going to start with my childhood favorite, and of course, I feel like it's a lot of people's favorite game out there. It's actually the one and the only Call of Duty. So basically, the main idea of the series of Call of Duty itself is that it immerses the player, the person who's playing. It essentially puts them into the shoes of someone in the military, a soldier of a certain degree. That basically you're given a set of missions to complete. You have to essentially stop the bad guy, stop the villain, and essentially save the country that you're fighting for. And yeah, it's essentially there's been a few twists on it, obviously, but it's stayed the same. It's pretty much stayed the same for the premise over the past several years that this game series has been out. There's actually I'm gonna break it down for you. There's actually two different companies that are in charge of making several series of each of the games. There's the Call of Duty Black Ops series, which is created by a company known as Treyarch, with several smaller companies that assist them. And then there's also the series that has to do with Modern Warfare, which is actually headed by Infinity Ward, and several small companies that work with them along the way to create the games. So we're actually going to start with the very first Call of Duty that came out. Several years ago. It actually took place back in the Second World War, I believe, or it might have been the first, actually. But you were essentially given several different characters to play as, several different soldiers, and basically your missions were to stop the enemy troops of the foreign army. And it's basically, for anybody who knows history, it was World War I and World War II. You had to stop your enemy from advancing forward, and essentially protect not only the people around you, but you had to protect the country that you were fighting for. I feel like it gave people a different perspective of how military based games operated. Not only did it play a different way from those games that everybody had, but it also, like I said, it gave people the opportunity to see what it would have been like during those times of war. And it helped the first person point of view, seeing it through the character's eyes. I feel actually helped the players to get a feel for it, just to see things from their point of view of what could have happened, what could have gone right, what could have gone wrong, and how actions of America and its allies could have changed the tide of World War I and World War II. But yeah, like I said, you play as several different soldiers who assisted their comrades in turning the tides. The good thing was, though, as technology advanced in not only civilian life to create said video games, but the technology in our military advancing, that the series of Call of Duty followed along with how these games were essentially created and developed. So several games took place during the World War I and World War II phase. So, and then eventually Treyarch released its very first Call of Duty, which was, I don't know if it was their first Call of Duty, but it was one of their biggest success Call of Duties, which was the original Call of Duty Black Ops. So Call of Duty Black Ops itself was extremely different from how the other Call of Duties played. Not only was it more immersive, there was more character development, because in the older Call of Duties, you never really had a backstory to your characters. it was just essentially, here's a soldier you're gonna play as. This is his name. This is what he does. This is his title. This is what you're gonna do. And I feel like Black Ops started the whole trend of giving a character a backstory essentially, and it was different from how to me it was different from how the other Black Ops and all the other Call of Duties played. It was actually the first Call of Duty that I ever played was the original Black Ops, and for me, I fell in love with the characters, and the characters were one of the biggest parts of the original Black Ops for me. For any Call of Duty fans out there, there's Sergeant Mason and Sergeant Woods, and they were like no other characters that the series had ever seen before for me, and they changed the way that I played video games. Call of Duty Black Ops itself was more immersive. There was more detail to be involved, and like I said before, as technology advanced, so did the graphics of how the game was created. There was more character features. Instead of their face being just a blur in the background that you couldn't see, you could actually see, if a character had a scar on his face or maybe even a beard or a mustache. Those facial features were a lot more clear because of how advanced technology had gotten. And obviously, as the times themselves changed, so did Call of Duty themselves. Call of Duty Black Ops actually took place during the time of the Vietnam War, and essentially right before the times of the Cold War. And so you even get a feel for that when your main character that you play as, Alex Mason, is placed at an army base in Vietnam as and several different missions in the game itself that take place in Vietnam that really help the players to establish what some of the men may have encountered during those times in the Vietnam War. There's several different missions where from attack from going against foreign enemies at your own American base established there, all the way up to underground tunnels going against these foreign enemies. And I think it really changed how the military, how the people had seen the military operating. It wasn't just a simple, these are the enemies on this side, and you're gonna walk this way towards the enemies, like the older Call of Duties. It wasn't that simple. There was more detail involved, more of a story behind it. We also got to see other people that are known, some people that are known through history, from presidents through to the CIA and other people in the government that have been seen in history, and to see those people portrayed, just to see that they had a part in it all, really helped. I keep saying this. It really helped me as a player to see imagine in my head what some of those times could have really been like. But yeah, guys. So we're actually gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking about some more modern times in Call of Duty and some of the modern times that the military is going up against right now. So stay tuned for more of Mitchell's Mystery Hour, guys. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Mitchell's Mystery Hour. Why is it a mystery? Because it's a new topic every single week. Now, as we were talking about in the last segment, we were talking about Call of Duty in the world of video games, and I want to quick talk about how Call of Duty has once again progressed over the times of the years. So we were originally talking about Call of Duty Black Ops, the original Black Ops game, and there have been several other Black Ops games in the past few years that have been quickly advancing in time. The second game that came out after the original took place in a combination of, I believe it was the 70s. It might have been the 70s, I believe. And also in like 2025, I think it was supposed to have taken place. So they were essentially flip-flopping back and forth between two different characters and how their stories crossed over each other. It was essentially Mason from the original Black Ops, and also his son David. The game followed them. David went into the military, to essentially follow in his father's footsteps, and over the course of history, we see Mason's decisions that he and his partner Woods, from the original game, of course, that he's back as well. We've seen their decisions and how they impacted David's time in the military going forward, and the enemies that they come up against. Because of course, in every Call of Duty, there has to be the bad guys along with the good guys, and we see several things, like several CIA cover-ups and other issues that come up, other problems that are uncovered from Mason's checkered past, and with that essentially it leads us to the third and fourth game. The third game had a story to it that had a few small connections, but it had nothing to do with the original story, and it was extremely disappointing to me. They didn't even take the time to develop a backstory for the character that you play as for the third game itself. It really bothered me that essentially you're with the marking above your character essentially just said player. It didn't have a name unless you gave it to them, and it didn't sit right with me that they just said, oh, you can customize your character however you see fit, and we're not even going to give them a name. And I'm like, but why? That takes away from the originality of the game. And they don't even. I think that the other main character that actually has a backstory to him gives you I believe he gives you a nickname, and then they just call you the nickname for the rest of the game, which is really disappointing because it's just so strange that to play as a character that has not only no name but no backstory. And I'm like, well, it's not very enjoyable, and essentially it's supposed to take place even further than the second game took place. So it's supposed to be like, I believe, 15 or 20 years later in the future. So it's like 2040, I believe. And I'm like, really? How do we even know? How can we even predict what 2040 is going to look like with robots? And essentially they had walking robot soldiers, and I'm like, all right, this is getting a little too sci-fi for me. Like we got to pull it back a little bit. But yeah, eventually your character suffers some severe injuries, and he gets robotic limbs, but they still allow him to be in the military because he's part of a science project that the military has going on. So essentially they put a computer chip inside your character's head that allows you to control. It gives you the abilities to control other robots and control other things in the world of technology. And I understand that technology is progressing with the times. We can essentially operate 90% of our house by just asking Alexa to do it. And I understand that they were trying to get with the times, but this was just out of hand. To have robot soldiers. I mean, I know that we may not know about some of the stuff that goes on out there, not necessarily here in the U.S., but we there may be top secret projects, but I don't know, robot soldiers. That seems a little far fetched to me. But and then essentially the third game leads into the fourth game, which is essentially just called Black Ops 4. And it again lacks the story, a good story, because essentially it was all multiplayer. You got to play against other players themselves to essentially in a game that was based on testing your skills versus somebody else. Essentially a who's better kind of situations. And every Call of Duty has thrived on players going against each other, but I guess they made it a point to completely take away the story and just make it all multiplayer. And for me, I mean, I enjoy multiplayer a lot, but it was just too much. Too much. They had some of the older characters, like they had Woods back, but he wouldn't have been alive. He was more of like a hologram essentially that took you through how the game worked, and they had some relatives of Mason himself from the original game, and it was a nice little. To me, it was a nice little gesture, but it kind of didn't sit right with me because it really felt like they were just trying to make up for what they had lost in the third game. And I know I might catch some flack for it because the fourth game was probably one that people enjoyed. I didn't actually get to play the fourth game myself because I wasn't a fan of it. But and then essentially Treyarch has taken a step back with how they develop games because they are in the process of currently releasing the next Black Ops game, which essentially takes you back in time from the year 2050 where the games ended, back to the 1980s actually, back when the Cold War was going on and Ronald Reagan was president, and we actually get to see some interaction between the main characters themselves and Ronald Reagan, who as we know was the president at that time. And they thought it would be a good idea to bring back Woods and Mason, who were as I keep saying, the original characters from the first game. And it was essentially they're trying to recreate the series of where it went wrong right after the first game came out. And to me it's a good decision. They described it as a soft reboot essentially, or a soft continuation. I'll put air quotes around it, to essentially make people forget about the second game on, and just they just said, hey, here's a new game with the old characters. It's gonna be good. Try it. So I'm like, yeah, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So I looked at the trailer. And it was fantastic because of, like I said, all the old characters that I fall in love with. And then seeing President Ronald Reagan was actually really wild. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta play this game. So they put out, for a couple weekends now, Treyarch, the company, has been putting out a couple of temporary betas, they're called, that people can play on. And the first time I picked up the game, I was like, ooh, it's a little rough. But of course you're gonna get that when they first create the game. There's gonna be kinks in there, and I'm like, yeah, I'll wait till the next one, till the next stage of development comes out, and then we'll give it a try. And I picked up the next phase, and I'm like, I like this game. It's in terms of graphics, they've taken a step back from some of their past games, but it really doesn't bother me. For me, it's all about how the game plays essentially. If you're a serious online player, it's how the game plays and operates, and I think it operates pretty smoothly. But yeah, that to me, I think that this new game, it's called Black Ops Cold War, obviously, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, and like I said, it takes you back in time, back to the Cold War and those tedious tension times that we were facing. And I think this is going to be a good thing for the series and for Treyarch, the company, because it's bringing back those characters that we all loved, and I think this is another good way to immerse the players into the lives of these characters who operated on these top secret missions, that, with air quotes, top secret, that no one should know about, and they encounter these people that no one should know about. And I think it's just a good, overall it's a good thing to take this step back. And they looked at the previous game, and they said, well, we're going too far, we need to pull it back. So what did they do? They just essentially went back in time, which was, like I said, I think, in my opinion, it's a good thing. And I have really high hopes for it. Unfortunately, it won't be coming out till November, which is very disappointing. But I'll be there to play it essentially when it drops. I can't wait for it. But yeah, guys, we're gonna be taking another quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking about the other company that develops Call of Duty and their series of games that they work on. So stay tuned for more of Mitchell's Mystery Hour, guys. Beautiful guys, gals, interdimensional beings that may be listening out there. I'm your host, Mitchell Hall, and we were talking previously about the company known as Treyarch and how they developed the Call of Duty Black Ops series. So we're actually going to take a turn and move on to another company that's equally as popular as Treyarch, who created equally as popular Call of Duty games, and that is Infinity Ward. So Infinity Ward, I feel like their big push started when they created what was known as the greatest Call of Duty of all time. And any big Call of Duty player will most likely stand up for this game, and it's the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Now, Call of Duty Modern Warfare was set in a previously-ish modern time, which which takes place during the times of like desert warfare and essentially our military being out in the deserts of foreign countries. And there's essentially two sides to this game. There's the side of the U.S. Army Rangers, and your character that you play as, searching for foreign enemies in the deserts. And then there's the jungle areas where you want to stay stealthy and quiet in the bushes, which is where you play as the SAS, which is the Scottish Armed Services. And each of these characters has a backstory and has their display. I shouldn't say displays several different values to each of their teams. It's very different. Modern Warfare itself, the series, because there's multiple games, the series itself is different from how the Black Ops series operated, and it essentially brought players who love the series into the times of modern military, and how our military acted on certain situations, such as a foreign power that may not have found us as likable as others may have. And those characters, like some of the bigger characters, such as Captain Price. Price is again one of the more well-known, biggest characters of Call of Duty. And essentially how he operates is he's a no nonsense kind of guy. They're given orders and they stick with it, which is a lot more. He was a lot more serious than some of the other characters we've seen in the past Call of Duties. And his team consisted of several non-important characters, as well as two other very important characters. One of them was Captain, or he wasn't a captain at the time. He was only a corporal, I believe. His name was John McTavish. He was, again, Scottish or British, I believe he was. They always called him Soap, as in like soap that you would buy at the Bath and Body Works or something like that. Nobody ever said why. That's just what they called him. And the other one, his name was Gaz. We never actually learned his full name until later on. But essentially, these characters work to stop this foreign power, or this organization, essentially, from waging war on the world. And this game essentially leads into the second and third games, which they follow the exact same story. They follow the same characters, essentially. It's all about Price, and it's all about Soap. And the third Modern Warfare was essentially the end of the series. They got the bad guy they were always after. They're after the same bad guy in all the games, essentially. They got the bad guy, and the game was over, essentially, the same way that all Call of Duties end. And it was a phenomenal series, and I always thought it was the end until last year in 2019, when they decided to release a new Modern Warfare. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, what can they do what can they do with this series? They've already pushed it to the limit. The main villain that they've been chasing this entire series over several years is gone, and they decided to take a step back, and essentially they created what the developers called a soft reboot, with air quotes. They took the characters that we all know and love, and they essentially put them in a new environment with a new enemy, and it was a time travel back in time, but they set it in the modern times of 2019. Essentially, the entire game took place. I believe the first mission of the game was 2 days after the game's release, or it was a day after the game's official release in real life. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, because this is like right now this is happening. And it was just different from how the older Modern Warfare games were. It was more gritty and more about survival, essentially. And it really gave me a good perspective of how the modern military approaches situations. They did everything from foreign powers to other even civilians or small groups of people that had issues with our country and other countries. And I just thought it was really cool. They incorporated not only Captain Price in the SAS, as everybody knows from the older Modern Warfares, but they also incorporated the CIA as well, which we hadn't seen much of in Modern Warfare, if any at all. And seeing the CIA involved, I had my fears that it was going to end up being too much like Black Ops because of the CIA being involved, but having a main character, a playable character, I should say, who was part of the CIA, was definitely a good change in pace. And even the way that not only the story, how gritty the story is, essentially, but how the multiplayer is played was different from the other in any Call of Duty. Even how different the multiplayer was. It was more slower. People weren't advancing on players. They would essentially put players on one side and players on another, and it was you basically just go and whoever wins, and it was normally in a normal multiplayer situation, these players would charge at each other full force to see who's better, but this game just wasn't the case. Essentially, they took the same map development as well as the same weapons from the story, and they said, well, here, you're gonna do the exact same thing that you did in the other games. And the players are like, okay. So eventually the players learned that your character would go down way too easily. So the way that people played the game started to slow down, and essentially now you just have one team staying on one side of the map and another team on the other side of the map, and you just essentially wait it out and wait to see what players make a move where. And sometimes, depending on how the teams play and how your team operates, if one player from another team makes a move, that might be enough to bring out the rest of their team, and that's when I believe that it gets fun, because it just didn't operate like a normal Call of Duty Modern Warfare game would. And of course, there's graphics, which obviously have gotten more advanced over the several years since the last Modern Warfare. To see these characters from essentially one of if not the most beloved Call of Duty in the history of the franchise, to see these characters so detailed, so much more detailed than they were before, there's no other feeling about it. And it wasn't the exact same game as the older games were, but it definitely gave me a good feeling of Modern Warfare in terms of the story. In terms of the story itself, it really gave me those good warm feelings inside of Modern Warfare. And essentially one of the games that I grew up playing and I enjoyed playing, and it's always gonna be one of my favorite games. And even when, like I said, Treyarch is working on Black Ops Cold War right now, which is coming out in November, but I think I'll stick with Modern Warfare until then. I actually was playing before I came here, and it like I said, I think I'm gonna stick with it because it really gave me the good feelings of how Call of Duty should have been played over the past few years that Modern Warfare has been over. Because essentially when the original Modern Warfare series ended, Infinity Ward themselves, the company, had some questionable games that probably shouldn't have been released. They probably should have just went into silence and waited till they were ready to release their latest Modern Warfare game. But that's just my opinion. So guys, we're going to be taking a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking more on the newest Modern Warfare that was released back in 2019. So stay tuned for more on Mitchell's Mystery Hour, guys. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Mitchell's Mystery Hour. Why is it a mystery, you ask? Because it's a new topic every single week. So before I went to break, we were talking about the Modern Warfare series of Call of Duty and how this newest game that was released last year in 2019 was essentially one of the biggest things for the series itself. And another add-on that this game featured that honestly no other Call of Duty, not just Call of Duties that were produced by the Infinity Ward company, but I mean Call of Duties in general, is that the game has an additional add-on that's a completely separate game itself. That's almost like a battle royale type of style game, where you can play in solos, duos, or trios with one or two other players. And they put you in, I believe it's a lobby of 200 players total, so that's several other teams, and your team essentially has to survive you or your team, whichever you're playing with. You have to survive these 200 other players, or essentially 197 other players that are basically looking to do the exact same thing you are, which is stop your team from winning the game, essentially. And these battle royales, it's essentially it's a game known as Warzone, as they call it. I'll put air quotes around it, but it's a battle royale type style. And these statistics that your team is, there's no statistics of how your team is matched up with other teams. So, which unfortunately for me is not a good thing, because I'm not as high of a level as some of these other pro players that are in the level 150s. But I enjoy playing Warzone itself. It's just something that the other games, like I said, the other Call of Duties never had a battle royale type style. The final Call of Duty Black Ops game, though, produced by Treyarch, had something similar to that, but it wasn't a full 200 player battle royale, which again for me, like I said, is something different, and it's essentially still being played a year later here in 2020, because I was just on there earlier today, and not earlier today, earlier yesterday, I apologize, but it's not as fast paced as some players would like. I know that some players like to grind and just keep going and push even further, but Warzone is an essentially different type of playing style that you have to adapt to. And essentially, if you're going to run somewhere, you don't want to run very far or very fast, because you'll be easily spotted by another player that's not on your team, or that's not on your side, I should say. And you most likely won't be able to see where that player is coming from if you're not an experienced, air quotes around experienced. If you're not an experienced player, then you're going to get outplayed. I'll call it outplayed. You're going to get outplayed every single time. because these players have just more experience, not only with the game itself, but with Warzone and the environment. And basically, if you're gonna travel somewhere, you're gonna need to get in a car or some sort of vehicle that can take you from point A to point B, because it's essentially not a good idea to go walking. And if you're gonna walk, you always want to keep your head down, and you always want to stay low to the ground, because if not, then like I said, you're gonna get spotted. And it's just a different type of playing style. You essentially want to sit in an area as long as, how I play is, you want to sit in an area as long as you possibly can before they end up closing the arena. And essentially what they do is they put this wall, I'll call it a wall. It's a wall of like toxic smoke that they put around the entire area of where all the players are. And I believe it's every few minutes the walls begin to close in until the circle of players gets smaller and smaller. And let me tell you, if you don't want to get caught outside the circle, because basically it's game over for you. And however, the good thing about Warzone itself is that even if it's your first time playing, your first time in the game, even if you do get taken out by another player, you get tossed, you get the ability to fight for a second chance, I should say. Basically, they put you into a prison type area. They call it the gulag. They put you in another area with another player, and basically you guys have to go at it, and whoever wins that game gets to go back into the Warzone arena, I should say. And I think it's okay, I guess, if you really want to get back in the game that badly. I don't know. To me, the gulag is a fair shot, because if say you just happen to be traveling along the road and another player takes you out of the game, and you feel wronged by that, because you didn't even get a fair chance to try and defend yourself. So you end up going into the gulag because you lost the game, so you have to go there. And you essentially beat this other player that was head to head with you. And if I'm put into the gulag and I win, that allows me to go back into Warzone, into the arena, and essentially I know where you're going to be. Whoever the player was that took you out of the game, you know where they're going to be, because it essentially shows you a first person point of view of that player who took you out of the game. So if you're skilled enough to remember where these said players are, the gulag gives you a chance to come back into the arena, and even to take these players out that took you out, because I think the gulag, like I said, I really think the gulag is fair. And I'll tell you a quick story of an experience I had with Warzone. So it's me and another teammate, and we're down several times already. We're just moving along, trying to survive, and I end up getting taken out of the game, but my teammate is still alive, luckily. So I end up winning the gulag challenge and getting back in the game, and I'm like, sweet, this is the perfect time to get back in there and help my teammate. So the game puts me back in the arena, and I was fortunate enough to be able to sneak up to the enemy players. I was able to take them out of the game, and I was able to rescue my teammate, who unfortunately was under some heavy stress because of me not being there. And not because I'm a better player or he's a better player. He's most likely the better player, but because it's easier having two sets of eyes versus one, to see where people are coming from and to see what's going on around you. And it's very, very helpful to have another person. Sometimes I like to play the solo game by myself, but it's not the same as having one or two teammates behind me that can really back me up. But yeah, guys, Warzone itself was a great add-on to the series of Call of Duty, but it takes up so much space that it's a bigger game. It's twice the size of any other regular Call of Duty game, I think. But yeah, guys, I want to thank you guys, whoever's listening out there. Thank you. And for other shows, you should listen live at cougarradio.net. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Like us on Facebook at Cougar Radio. Subscribe on YouTube also, and Spotify. And don't forget to watch and listen to other amazing podcasts and shows that we have here at Cougar Radio. Thanks a lot, guys.